Hey, how's everyone doing? Nice to see you again. Today I want to do another kind of profile or take a look at another of these great anthologies that were put out by Black Lizard or Vintage Crime imprint, the publishing imprint. The Big Book of Stories. I've talked about the Big Book of Adventure Stories. I've showed off the Big Book of Locked Room Murder Mysteries. I think I've shown off a few other ones. And my collection overall, and one of the ones I want to look at today in more detail because it fits PI July. And I'm one of the co-hosts of Jim at Mystery and Mayhem's awesome event, BookTube event, PI in July, talking about all things private detective. And of course, the PI story started, really, in the pulps. And what better way to talk about that kind of pulp fiction than Black Mask Pulp magazine. And here is the Big Book of Black Mask Stories, edited by Otto Penzler, who edited all 15 or 16 in this series. I forgot the exact count of them. I have roughly half of them by now. And you'll see in the back here, the Black Mask detective magazine story. Now, Black Mask ran from 1920 to, I believe, 1951 is when it officially folded. Had a bit of a revival and was kind of bought out and brought in as a department of the Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine. And of course had a later, just like Weird Tales, the other probably is equally famous pulp magazine, had a kind of revamp in the 80s, I believe, or maybe 90s. Anyway, I'm going to focus on the stories that were taken out of the original Black Mask pulp. And I'm going to show you the inside. I'll do a little flip through of this thing. Not all of these Big Book of anthologies that were put out under Otto Penzler's editorship retained a lot of pulp art, but some of them do, and this one is chock-a-block full with it, and you should see some cool art inside as we flip through this. I'll try to make this as brief as possible because there are 53 stories in this chonker. This thing taps out at what? 1,116 pages, including acknowledgments on the last page there. So a lot of detective stories are in this thing, and I'll try to point them out as we go through. Okay, let's take a closer look. Okay, so here again we have the cover with this Jane Russell looking mall being all tough, holding a Tommy gun and a pistol, right? The greatest crime fiction from the legendary magazine. Edited and with an introduction by Otto Penzler. Also an introduction by Keith Allen Deutsch, publisher of Black Mask magazine. I think the newer, revamped version. So, and you'll see the Black Mask right there. Very cool. All of these Black Lizard Big Book ofs have kind of a cool opening page. There's a little Black Lizard right there for Vintage Crime. In the table of contents, we have tons and tons of stories. Forward by Otto Penzler, and then Keith Allen Deutsch talks about in the introduction the origins of the Black Mask magazine and its various permutations over the years. And as you see, the whole book is laid out, as all of these Big Book of anthologies are, in double columns. Now, here we go. Let's get into it. We have first, Come and Get It by Earl Stanley Gardner. Look at all this cool pulp art. Now, this is one of Earl Stanley Gardner, who, of course, went on to write many, many novels featuring the lawyer, the defense attorney, Perry Mason. He also wrote the Cool and Lamb detective novel, and he had several other series characters in the pulps, and this one is featuring his character, Ed Jenkins, the Phantom Crook. Then we have a Frederick Brown story, just a generic crime story, but very cool art here, and I'm sure a very cool story, Cry Silence. It's quite short, though. Then we have Arson Plus by Peter Collinson. Now, Peter Collinson was a pseudonym for Dashiell Hammett. Dashiell Hammett, of course, the creator of Sam Spade and the Continental Op. This is considered the first Continental Op story. All right, and then we have a very cool little thing here at the end of the Continental Op story. And now we have by George Harmon Coates, Fall Guy, which is a Casey crime photographer. This is Jack Flashgun Casey, crime photographer. So not technically a PI, but a cool crime story. And you'll notice these novelettes. Many of these are novelettes, and they have little At each chapter, they'll have some little art by each chapter break, which is cool. And after this, we have Doors in the Dark by Frederick Nebel. This is one of the Nebel's McBride and Kennedy mysteries. McBride is a police captain, I believe, and Kennedy is his reporter friend, and together they fight crime and corruption. Look at this awesome art right here. Very cool. A story of Captain Steve McBride. And again, various chapters or sections have art with them to introduce each of them. Very cool. Then we have Lester Dent, Luck by Lester Dent. This is one of two of his Oscar Sale stories, who's a kind of, I guess, a sailor, a boatman who rents out his boat and gets involved in various crime stories. Lester Dent, of course, the creator of Doc Savage, or one of the creators and the primary writer of the Doc Savage pulps. But he also wrote straight crime stories very well. This one's called Sail. Then we have serialized version of the Maltese Falcon. So there's some art for, again, Spade and Archer, Maltese Falcon. I think this is over 100 pages of double column text. The novelized version cut some things down and, remains a classic of hard-boiled detective fiction. But I'd like to read this original serialized version. I'm sure it's very cool. And again, we have after each chapter, for each chapter, some little cool artwork there. We're gonna have to move fast, guys, because there's so many stories in here. Again, we have some more sections. Maltese Falcon again continues on for quite a bit of space. All right, then we get to 10 Carats of Lead by Stuart Sterling. And this is something involving the Special Squad. Again, each of these stories gets a cool introduction about the author from Otto Penzler. And if they have a noted series sleuth or character or several of them, then he will usually mention them. If not, he'll just talk about various movies they might have written scripts for. Look at this awesome art. Very cool. A Special Squad story. Again, lots of novelettes in here. Lots of reading. Then we have Murder is Bad Luck, Wyatt Blassingame. This is no series detective here. This is just maybe a jockey or somebody who's watching the horse racing and gets involved in a criminal story. That one looks pretty cool. Then we have Talmadge Powell, very famous hard-boiled detective writer. Her Dagger Before Me. Okay, exciting mystery novelette. And this is one of Talmadge Powell's Tampa Bay private detective Ed Rivers stories. And you see maybe in the Everglades or somewhere near the beach. There's Ed Rivers. I found Osgood by the Water. What a cool piece of art that is. Okay, and then after that, we have One Shot by Charles G. Booth. This is just a crime story here. Get a little cool art at the end of it. Then we have The Dancing Rats by Richard Sale. Pretty cool. This is a novelette again. And Richard Sale, of course, this is featuring a Dr. Nicholas Adams. I don't know if he was a serialized character. It doesn't seem to be. But this is set in, I think, Molokai or somewhere in Hawaii. And Dr. Nicholas Adams apparently is tending to leper colony in Molokai and gets involved in some crime case here. The Dancing Rats. Gotta love this pulp stuff. And we have Bracelets by Catherine Brocklebank, one of the few female writers in this collection, maybe the only one. This is Tex of the Border Patrol character here, his story. So a cop story, I guess. Looks pretty cool. Then we have Diamonds Mean Death by Thomas Walsh. This is just a crime story with, again, some very cool introduction art there. Then we have a crime boxing story, Murder in the Ring by Raoul Whitfield. Again, no series detective as far as I'm aware here, but some cool interior art. reproduced very nicely from the original Pulp magazine stories. Okay, The Parrot That Wouldn't Talk. Take a look at this sucker. The Parrot That Wouldn't Talk by Walter C. Brown. This is a Chinatown novelette. This stars Sa Jean O'Hara, Blue Coat Devil of the Chinatown Squad. So maybe some yellow peril racism in this one. But what a cool piece of art in that, right? Again, this is a longer one, so with chapter headings and breaks, it has some art involved. Then we have Let the Dead Alone by Merle Costiner, or Costiner, not sure which. This is Luther McGavrick, Memphis PI. McGavrick giving a, McGavick. Luther McGavick giving the old 1, 2, 3 punch to this crim right here. Again, love this art. It's so cool to see it reproduced, and I'm glad they did little bits here to share more of the interior art. That's a nice long one. Let the Dead Alone. Okay, then Knights of the Open Palm, Carol John Daly, largely credited with kind of creating the private detective, hard-boiled private detective genre with his character Race Williams. Knights of the Open Palm. Okay. Now, here we have an author was previously unfamiliar with, Ramon de Colta, who apparently grew up in the Philippines and wrote a series of stories about a guy named Jogar, I believe is his name. Jogar, Island Detective. Seems to be based in Hawaii. And this anthology includes 6 of those stories here in a row, right? So we have Diamonds of Dread. And we have The Man in White. Again, an adventure of Jogar, the little island detective in search of murderers and their loot. Okay, there's some extra art there. Maybe ships involved. Then we have The Blind Chinese. Again, Black Mask at this stage was maybe not the most politically correct of magazines, for sure. Red Dawn, another Jogar mystery adventure, two-fisted adventure from the Island Detective. Blue Glass. And we have one more. We already had Diamonds of Dread, and now we have, to finish up, Diamonds of Death. Lots of diamonds, obviously, involved in the Jogar cases. All right. What a title for this one. The Ring on the Hand of Death by William Rollins Jr. This is just a regular crime story, okay? But I love that title. Very evocative, pulpy title. We have Body Snatcher by Theodore A. Tinsley. Body Snatcher, again, with some cool art there. Body Snatcher is a Jerry Tracy gossip columnist, like a Walter Winchell type, who apparently gets involved in solving crimes. So not technically a PI, but good crime story hero. Now, you might laugh at the title of this story, Murder on the Gayway. This is apparently set at the Treasure Island Resort. I believe this is in San Francisco. I know Charlie Chan at Treasure Island focuses on, that's one of the best Charlie Chan movies, and that focuses on this Treasure Island place. Murdered on the Gayway is Beak, Detective Beak. I don't know what is a private detective Beak. I don't know what his B-E-E-K, don't know what his first name is, by Dwight V. Babcock. Murder on the Gayway. Wow, interesting. Okay. And then we have The Key by Cleve F. Adams, which is about an LA cop pair of detectives. What a cool splash page kind of art there. We have LA cop team of Lieutenant Canavan and Lieutenant Kleinschmidt. So kind of a cop police procedural, I guess. We have a pretty well-known name here, William Campbell Galt, The Bloody Baccara, which was later turned, according to Otto Penzler's introduction, into a novel, a standalone novel. And this is just I guess a crime story in general. But what awesome art here. I reached Selleck just as he threw George Harrow over the edge of the balcony. Pretty cool, huh? With rug, Turkish carpet with some blood coming out of it. I guess that's the bloody Bokhara. All right, then we have some Mike Shane coming up here with A Taste for Cognac. Mike Shane mystery by Brett Halliday. Again, Mike Shane shooting it out with some bad guys. Very cool art there. Okay. Looks like, again, another kind of long novelette. Sauce for the Gander by Day Keene. Sauce for the Gander is just a crime story. Pretty cool looking art again. A Little Different by W.T. Ballard. Now, this is Bill Lennox, studio troubleshooter. So he's some kind of, Hollywood studio troubleshooter trying to save or get involved with, looks like some kind of actress is in some kind of trouble with some crime there. That's pretty cool. Then we have Charles M. Green, The Shrieking Skeleton, a complete, fast-moving mystery novelette. Now, this is a pseudonym for Earl Stanley Garner. So we had an earlier story from Earl Stanley Garner, and this is him writing another crime story, though it doesn't appear to be one of his mini series characters that he wrote. So Earl Stanley Garner, of course, started out in the pulps and then became massively popular and famous and best-selling author of the Perry Mason series and the Bertha Cool and Donald Lamb private detective series. The Shrieking Skeleton. Okay, Drop Dead Twice by Hank Searles. This is a private eye named Pete. I scanned through this book very carefully, but in this story, I haven't read it yet. I can't find the PI's last name. He narrates the story, so I don't know if they ever call him by his last name, but his name is Pete anyway. It starts off with a pretty grim, finding a strangled body, and, he gets a decoy going to catch the killer. The Sound of the Shot by Dale Clark. Now, this is set at a beauty pageant, it sounds like, and it's got house detective, house dick Mike Ohana involved in this case. That sounds like a lot of fun. Then we have Frederick C. Davis, who's the writer and creator of the Moon Man character, which I've mentioned, the Pulp character, the Moon Man, that I have talked about a couple of his stories. But this is not a Moon Man story. This is just a crime story. Flaming Angel, where a man is talking about, hey, when I cremated you, about murdering a woman, his wife twice or something like that. A kind of noirish story. Most of these are either noirish or hard-boiled detective. We have Odds on Death by Don M. Mankiewicz, who I believe wrote for several films. And Odds on Death. This is just another crime story. Then we have Norvell W. Page, who wrote some fantasy stories and all sorts of other cool stories. I'm sure lots of adventure stories as well. And here is one of his Jules Tremaine mysteries. Jules Tremaine is a mysterious figure, apparently. As it says here, Jules Tremaine promises to be a notable addition to the Black Mask character group. Himself, his mission are both a little mysterious. He walks boldly where one without courage would scarcely venture. He peers at odds with an established circle of ruthless political power and of wealth drawn from such sordid source. At times he is a soft-spoken and sympathetic as a woman. At others he is dynamite unleashed. Okay, that sounds cool. A lot of these I have not read. Most of these I have not read, and I really am looking forward to reading some. Hopefully this month for PI July. Smoke in Your Eyes by Weird Tales stalwart and Pulp stalwart horror story writer Hugh B. Cave. This is apparently about a group called Trouble Inc., Trouble Incorporated, headed by John Smith, which sounds pretty cool. And then we have Blood, Sweat, and Beers. Beers? I think it's like a burial beer. It's quite a cartoony kind of piece of art there. It looks pretty cool. This is Blood, Smoke, and Beers is a P.I. Selene Smith. Two-fisted private detective. Gotta love that. Again, another novelette with lots of little bit of art, including some pretty cool stuff there. The Black Bottle by Whitman Chambers. This story features Lieutenant Larry McMain. Now, I have no idea if he's a series character. I can't tell from the introduction. But he is the main character, a cop character in this story. Then we have The Corpse Didn't Kick by Milton K. Ozaki, who appears to be a half-Japanese writer, which sounds pretty cool. This is just a crime story, though. I don't think it's a PI story. I think it's about a guy trying to set up a murder of his wife or something. Then we have Try the Girl by Raymond Chandler. Now, he's famous enough, I guess he doesn't get any art in his story. This is not a Philip Marlowe story, although a lot of Raymond Chandler's pulp stories he kind of rewrote and rejiggered to all be featuring Marlowe, because all of these various kind of PI characters he used in the pulps before Philip Marlowe came into being were basically the same, cut from the same mold. This one is a Lou Carmody is the main character here. This Chandler didn't have a lot of success in the pulps, believe it or not, but his novels, of course, really took off. Anyway, this looks like a great story. I'm going to try to read that. Love Raymond Chandler, probably considered the best wordsmith of all the hard-boiled private detective writers. Had a real way with the simile and a metaphor and some sharp, sarcastic dialogue. Don't You Cry for Me by Norbert Davis. This is just a crime story, although I'm sure Davis had his share of pulp characters. Again, some cool art for the introduction there. Famous science fiction pulp writer Ray Cummings, known for his story, The Girl in the Golden Atom. Very cool story. He wrote a series about a guy named T. McGurk. T. McGurk steals a diamond. Again, no art in this one, but that's a cool little story, short story. Wait for Me by Steve Fisher. This is kind of a spy drama set, I believe, in Hong Kong. Spy espionage noir story. Frank Gruber, another really well-known and respected pulp crime writer. This is Ask Me Another. This is one of his Oliver Quaid stories. Oliver Quaid, the human encyclopedia, who has works for a detective agency. Dirty Work by Horace McCoy. This one looks really cool. This one is featuring Frost of the Texas Air Rangers. So we got a little aviation pulp crime stuff. We got Merely Murder by Julius Long. Look at this awesome spread of art here. And this is featuring a cop, I believe, by the name of Ben Crockett. And again, with the chapter breaks, some more cool art. And we have John D. MacDonald, Murder in One Syllable. Now, of course, John D. MacDonald, famous for writing many standalone crime novels, as well as the great Travis McGee series of PI novels based around Florida. But this is just a crime story, but what a cool bit of art there we have. I turned quickly and something hot and hard hit me over the watch pocket. Got a lady sprawled here. Is she a corpse? Is she alive? Is she dead? There's a guy with a gun. Someone who's up to his neck in trouble. Got to have John D. MacDonald in there. He started in the pulps before he had a huge success in the paperback market, maybe towards the tail end of the Black Mask run. We have Three Apes from the East by H.H. Stinson. And this is Thorne. This is narrated by, or first person narration from a guy named Thorne, who's a PI for some sort of detective agency. And he's paired up with a smart aleck lady co-worker to nail these three apes from the East. These three kind of criminals, and that's quite a long novelette there, obviously. And we have Death Stops Payment by D.L. Champion. Death Stops Payment by D.L. Champion. Look at my notes here. This is just a crime story, looks like. And then we have one from a noted author who's most famous for his story, his amazing short story, much anthologized. And that is The Most Dangerous Game, Richard Connell. And this is a story about the Ku Klux Klan, I guess, the color of honor. Sounds a little hinky to me. Not so sure about that. Then we have this another cool art spread again. Middleman for Murder by Bruno Fisher. And then this is just another crime story. No detective here. We have The Man Who Chose the Devil by Richard Deming. And there's the devil right there. And this evil guy that's apparently this is a kind of police procedural one. And then we're almost to the end now, folks. We've got a couple more cool ones left. We got a very cool looking crime story, PI, private detective story by science fiction writer C.M. Kornbluth called Beer Bottle Polka. It's featuring PI Tim Skeet. And if we finish off with a story called Borrowed Crime, just a regular crime story by a writer noted for these, Cornell Woolrich, the guy who wrote the original short story that the movie Rear Window was based. Plenty of other detective stories. No art on this one either. Again, he's pretty famous. Don't need it, I suppose. That's it. That's the end of the Black Mask collection, the Black Lizard Big Book of Black Mask Stories, the greatest crime fiction from the legendary magazine. Tons and tons of good stuff in there. Over 1,100 pages of hard-bitten, hard-boiled, tough private eye crime, noir, spy fiction. Thanks for watching. Hope you found something interesting there, at least in the art. And I will talk to you in another video. Thanks a bunch.